I looked up into the face of my first grade teacher, trying to understand what she was asking of me. Do your parents know you're doing this? I don't think they would like you saying the Pledge of Allegiance since you're not American. I think when we say the pledge, you should wait in the hall. I responded with, I think it's okay. She was quick to say, no, it's not. It's not okay, as she pointed to the door and ushered me out of the room. And so began my routine. Month after month, my teacher would glance my way, I would lower my head, and I would leave the room while my classmates committed their loyalty to our nation and to one another. It was 1986. I was 6 years old and in the first grade. My parents had immigrated from Mexico only a handful of years earlier, and until that moment, I was relieved from my claim to honor and protect the country I was born in. I didn't realize that there were people who thought I didn't belong here. Out in the hallway, I would stand by the hooks where we would hang our coats to start our day. I would run my fingers across those jackets, back and forth, feeling the different materials, wondering what it meant to be not American. Could someone pick out my jacket from the line of jackets and know it belonged to a Mexican? She made it sound like such a dirty word. That moment will stay with me always. For the first time, I felt shame for being somehow different, for not being American like my classmates. Although I looked like the other kids in my class, I was singled out, and the children in my class started having ideas about who I was and began labeling me. It happened slowly, then all at once. Because English isn't my first language, the predominantly white school I attended was ill-equipped for an English language learner. I was placed in a class for kids who had developmental delays. The kids in my class questioned my intelligence. Kids would see me outside of school with my parents and hear my parents speaking Spanish to me, and they thought they were mean. Kids wondered if I was being abused. All these things were beyond what I, a 6-year-old, could comprehend, let alone defend. My savior came in the form of a substitute teacher who ignored the students as they tried to convince her that I was to be excused during the pledge that morning. She shook off the accusation that I was not American and inadvertently broke the rule imposed by my first grade teacher. She ignored the kids as they were pointing at me, hoping to get praise for outing me. I wonder why I didn't speak out or ask for clarification. I simply followed directions. As a child, you were taught that teachers were to be entrusted and were there to protect you. I don't know what happened after the substitute's visit or what was said to whom, but after she taught our class that day, I was suddenly allowed to stay. I never questioned it. I suddenly belonged. And I thought maybe this would change the attitudes of some of the kids had already developed about me. But the damage was already done. I was in the 7th grade before I mentioned this to my parents.
Ugh.
They were horrified. It wasn't until that moment I realized that my teacher had treated me differently because of my name, because of my parents and their connection to another country. Her racism is even more appalling because it gave my first grade class a considered lesson in bigotry. It has been over 30 years since that incident in my hometown of Southern Oregon. Now as an adult, I look at what's happening in the world today and how immigrants are treated in this country. My family came here in search of a better life for their children. They wanted us to have the freedom to make choices, and those choices came with sacrifices. You see, I get a glimpse of what it's like for white Americans. Compared to the rest of my family, I don't look Mexican. I have shed my accent, and I'm well aware that my coloring allows me to pass under the radar. It gives me a unique perspective. I get to see how people truly act and talk about people of color when we are not there. And let me tell you, I just don't I don't just sit in the sidelines enjoying my privilege. I stand up and I speak out for those who are treated unfairly. I want nothing more than to raise my son in a world where people of all races, cultures are treated with respect, where boys and girls can go to school and have an equal opportunity at an education without being pointed out for being different. I think of my first grade teacher every time I finish the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I wonder how she understood this last stanza, how she could say these words knowing full well I stood outside in the hall. For me, those words are alive, ideals we need to pursue daily, and the hope of a world where everyone can dream of a better and more just world.